Have you ever wanted to be a titan of industry, squeezing the last drop of value out of your every employee and facility? Then Fantastic Factories might not have the tone you're looking for, but you still might like it. I'm J. Allen Riker, horror author and solo board game fanatic, and this is my review of Fantastic Factories. This is a quick, uncomplicated game, so let's see if I can give it a quick, uncomplicated review. Something that I am not known for. In Fantastic Factories, you buy blueprints and use resources gained from applying dice to your personal board and your tableau to make buildings from those blueprints, increasing your tableau, creating that reassuring, virtuous circle where hard work pays off in the form of sweet, sweet victory points. You start out with a strategy for building the most efficient tableau, trying to get the cards that will combo together the best, but you never know what you're going to have access to and when. So you have to know when you need to ditch your strategy to tactically improvise. What might a person not like about Fantastic Factories? For my taste, there are not enough distinct strategies. Rather, there are incremental improvements to your implementation of the handful of strategies. And there's a lot of just building things up as best you can when things allow. You can focus on monuments, you can focus on resource conversion, you can focus on dice manipulation, but there aren't many other things to focus on. Possibly related, I don't think that the range of likely scores is large enough. This probably means that the game is really well balanced, which is good, but I would like to have an occasional blowout, like when you get a bunch of galactic trendsetters out in your tableau early in Jump Drive. I felt that that was a lot more possible for the AI than for myself because the AI's score is so dependent on rolls that it really could hurt you a lot. I didn't find that that was often the case. It's just that it's the only place where I would see a blowout really being possible. Speaking of lucky rolls, in the game you see behind me, I didn't roll the one, like a one pip, I needed for like 5 rounds straight. I would personally, now, that's not that big of a deal, certainly not game breaking, but it points to something that I would like, which is a lot more dice manipulation. And for it to not have such a large opportunity cost, I say that because you get victory points by building most buildings. But there are, I think, 3 dice manipulation buildings, and while they are cheap to build, they don't give you any victory points. And they move you closer to the end of the game because when either side hits 10 buildings, that's it. Now, that's probably a matter of my personal taste. I really love dice manipulation. It's one of my favorite mechanisms, but because it's there in just a little bit of it, I would personally like more. Something that I think is maybe some me and maybe the game is that the market looks bigger than it is. What you see behind me is you see an 8 card market, but 4 of those are contractors and 4 of those are blueprints. I found that I didn't use the contractors until I was either backed into a corner and then I started looking at them, or when I was trying to squeeze absolutely the most points possible out of my last 1 or 2 turns. And that's half the market up there. Now, if somebody focused on the contractors, I never played a single game where I paid a ton of attention to the contractors. I always preferred to grab a blueprint at the beginning because you get 1 free card to grab a blueprint rather than a contractor, especially because contractors actually would cost you another card, if I remember correctly. So maybe it is more viable, but for me, the market was very small, meaning that what you drew mattered a whole lot. And the small market could sometimes really mess you up. That meant that it was a little harder to pull off strategies, um, and instead made you improvise tactically. So maybe it's not the worst thing, because otherwise, if you were really able to implement uh, the strategy exactly as you wished, then you would find your optimal one, and there would be no reason to not do that every single game, and then it would get boring. It's just that the game is otherwise so easy and breezy that it feels kind of like a hardship, but maybe it's not. Something which I'm similarly ambivalent about, and which is really probably just inherent in the nature of Tableau builders, is that the more you add to your Tableau, the more likely you are to forget to do things, like it's the passive abilities, or even forget to use the active abilities. But I mean, it's especially annoying to forget to take a passive benefit, like to be able to draw a card every time you build a building. But the reason I say I'm ambivalent is for twofold. First of all, I have a particularly bad memory for these things, so you might not experience this. You probably know if you play Tableau builders and you forget to take your benefits, then you're likely to do so here. If you never do, then you probably won't have that struggle. But one nice thing about that is that you get to kind of scan your Tableau. It gives you a reason to really peruse it every single round. And then it kind of feels fun, like a fun little reward for your effort when you see one of those things that you forgot. Let's go into the definite positive about Fantastic Factories, which I feel really outweigh the negatives. First, I like how the game looks. The vibrant colors and the Web 2.0 art style is lively and fun, and it's just uncommon in board games. The game, it makes the game inviting, and pretty much everything else about the game like says that that is true. That is not a deception. You are invited in to have a fun time. It's a very easy game to play. I forget how to play games so easily, at least enough to need a review. I might watch a bit of a video or flip through the rule book. But with this, I could sit down and I could start playing it again, even though I've had it put away for a month. Um, it's also very easy to adjust the difficulty. I will say that the jumps in the difficulty feel kind of big, because the way that you adjust difficulty is you give the AI an extra card. That extra blueprint card, well, it's an extra building when they have it, because they don't have to wait to build it. They lay it out as a building. That gives them the ability to gain victory points more easily, because the more buildings they have of any color, the more likely you are to roll beneath it with that color of dice, which is how they get extra victory points, along with getting the victory points for the building. So that starts them accelerating their victory point acquisition more quickly. But what it really does is it causes them to hit that 10 card limit one round quicker. And you know how you have that feeling when you're playing a game like this, where you just wish that you could run your engine for one extra round? You really feel that. I felt that a lot when I played this game on hard, because I lost that round that I had a round I had grown accustomed to having when my engine was running really smoothly, and it was game over. So while I enjoyed the ease of adjusting the difficulty, I don't think that I will play this on hard, because it feels like cutting the game short to me. But I just described how the AI runs, and what I just said is pretty much everything you need to know. I mean, it runs like an absolute dream. It makes it very easy to track rounds, which is something that I am super forgetful about. The AI accelerates as the game goes, giving you the illusion that you're playing an opponent, but with no overhead, no switching to different rounds of difficulty. Instead, like I said, you're laying out these a card for it every round. You're putting a building out for it every round, and then you're rolling one of every dice color. The green one tells you which card to take to build or to wipe out a whole row and to draw a random card, a row out of the market. So that's how it helps the market circulate. And then each one of those die is the color of one set of buildings. And if they have more buildings than the value on the die, then, or I think maybe if it's equal to or less or greater buildings than the number on the die, then they get an extra victory point. So that means that the longer they play, just like you, but while you're building up your engine to make it easier to get victory points, they're very naturally just getting more victory points. Super easy. I've never played, I don't know if I've played an AI that was that simple, but did a good job of simulating an opponent. Like the AI probably ran in 30 seconds every round. Similarly, the setup is super fast. You just flop out flop out 4 cards, uh, give the AI a card, give yourself, uh, or give your AI the number of cards set to the difficulty that you've set it to, which is I think 3 for normal. So that's what I would usually do, and then give yourself 4 cards. There you go. You're up and running. This is the perfect lazy evening game when you're tired. It's what I call a filler game, which is a game that I would set out to go between games that I want on my table for a full week. You can very easily put this out for a night, leave it out for a couple nights, but it's just very convenient. Another place where it like just reduces the stress on you is that you have a lot of freedom in the order in which you do things. So you draw your card at the beginning. You choose whether you want a blueprint or a contractor, but after that, there's not a specific round for drawing more cards, paying for more cards to draw, for paying for resources, for building buildings. Like you can do all of those things freely until you don't have anything more to do in your turn. That means that you don't have to sit and think really hard at the front end of your turn in order to execute it perfectly, because you can always double back after you see the next thing. You're like, okay, yeah, this is what I definitely most want to do. You do it, you see what resources you have left, what options are available to you, and you do the next thing. It really lets you have a lot of fun within your turn, a lot of freedom. So during my first few games, I kept almost the exact same score. I think maybe it was off by 1 point each. And you'll remember that I did say that I wish that there was a little bit more ability to have a wider spread, like there was a wider spread of possible scores. And maybe for some of you, maybe you'll be way better at this than me, and you will find that. But to have the score falling within like a point every time as I was increasing the difficulty each round meant that for the first several games, I was definitely learning things, playing better, and that was a really good feeling. I will say that it plateaued, but I don't know, maybe if I stick with it and I'm bringing it out regularly, I'll surprise myself. Like I said, you have a lot of freedom in your rounds to kind of just have fun in a pretty low stress way. And something that I feel lends to that is typically a lot of times in Tableau builders, um, you don't have a lot of things that you can do for a lot of the game. It takes a long time to get your engine running. With Fantastic Factories, the first few rounds, you are going to be using your board to kind of get the bare minimum of resources to build a few things. But it does not take long. You are, you know, before you hit the middle of the game, you're having a lot to think about. You're having a good amount of things that you can do. And especially then in the later games, things start to get super combo-tastic, which is, in my mind, the joy of this sort of game. So I'm glad that you start off with being able to to do a lot earlier than in a lot of games like this. And then when you get to that like final round, you probably still have a, unless you've cut it really close and knew exactly what you're doing, you might have a pile of resources, and it's really rewarding sitting there and squeezing every bit of juice that you can out of your resources and cards. um, there's very little penalty in this game for waiting to see how things play out. So if you don't intend to use a building immediately, for example, in some games where maybe you could only build one building per turn, you would still play it and then you'd be locked into that. In Fantastic Factories, because you can build as many buildings as you want up to the end game limit of 10, and you can use it immediately, so you don't have to try to pre-plan that. It lets you kind of hold things and see how things develop. I'm not saying that this is how you want every game to play, but it feels really nice in this game. You can see the lay of the land and then do something when dedicate once you're ready to actually make use of something. And that, I think, leads into just the strength of this game. You notice that I said that there's little penalty, that there's a lot of freedom. It's a low stress game, but it still has some very thinky parts, especially near the end when you're crunching out those combos and deciding which routes you want to go. Because the combos kind of branch into trees. If you do this, then you can take advantage of this, 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 and this. If you do this, then you can take advantage of this, this, this. And so it's still like it's a game that does not stress me out at all, and can sometimes be a kind of an easy person to stress out, but still gives you a lot of stuff to think about. As part of the conclusion, I have to say that I left the game out for almost a full week. I left it out for 6 days, and I do think that that is probably too long for a game of this simplicity. There aren't enough strategies to make it interesting for that long. I know that there are a couple of expansions. I don't tend to buy like gameplay expansions. I tend to buy content expansions of games that I really like. So, but I think that maybe I heard that one of those does deepen the experience a bit, and then maybe it would be a game that you decided to take out and table for a week. But I will say that I had it out for 6 days. I was kind of like, I'm going into recording it, but I'm not that jazzed about playing this last game. And then I had a ton of fun. It was a really fun game, and uh, it's just I think that that's what this game is. It's easy to take out, have a lot of fun with, and then put away. Especially with how smooth the AI is, I think that this game, in my opinion, for solo, this game is much better than Wingspan, and which I think is a good reference point for a tableau builder. And I have the feeling, honestly, that Fantastic Factories is now at the top of my list of my easy to table go to tableau building games. It's easy, fun, but with a good amount of thinky crunch to it towards the end. So that's it from me. If you have played Fantastic Factories, drop in the comments what you think about it. And especially if you have played the expansions and you think that one of them really deepens the game, I would be really interested to hear your opinion on that. So that is it for today. I am Jalen Riker. Have a great rest of your day and keep playing solo.